Okay, Mr. Jones wanted us to address the following question. What's our problem? Then after addressing that question, go and find what does the research say, what do we currently do, and what do we need to do in the future when it comes to assigning homework, grading homework, giving feedback to students, etc. So we feel like our first question, what's our current problem, is that maybe we don't really have a plan in place for how we give homework. Everybody just kind of does their own thing, even within departments, even within teams that teach the same subject. We don't really have a standard way that we assign homework, or how much we're giving, what kind of things are we giving, and then how quickly we provide feedback for that. So maybe that's a problem that we need to fix or address in some way. Okay, actually, I guess we do have somewhat of a guideline for how we're supposed to do homework. There's a district policy, which I'm kind of just now finding out about, that there are some homework guidelines, but ours is this little section down here, and it's very vague. This is stuff for younger grades, but it says grades 7 through 12 homework guidelines. Bullet 1, grades reported as homework grades are constituted of work assigned to be completed at home. Okay.
Homework.
Homework. Bullet 2, homework should be a review or reinforcement of skills already covered in the classroom, which is actually something that research backs up, that you shouldn't assign homework before it's been taught. As like a get ready for the next unit sort of thing. You should only assign it if it's already been covered in class. So I guess we're good for that one bullet. It should not be new information for the student. And the third bullet is students are expected to complete all homework assignments. End of paragraph, or end of it all.
Students have no time to enjoy life. Therefore, schools should limit the amount of out-of-school work.
I don't like homework.
I think homework is boring and monotonous.
Okay. Then one question that maybe we had amongst ourselves is, should we even be doing homework? If the kids don't like to do it and they're not doing it, or they're copying somebody else's homework just to get it done, is it even worth us trying to do? And what research says is that it is worth doing, that there is a positive effect on student achievement when good homework is given that can be done in a good amount of time, that there's a positive relationship there. And that comes from really several different research studies. I'm reading this one specifically from a journal from School Community Journal that cites several different people, Cooper, Robinson, and Patel, Weinstein, Wahlberg. There's several people's names here with studies that have been done over the past 30 years that all come to the same conclusion. Homework has a positive effect. But maybe the better question is, what kind of homework gives you the positive effects? What's effective homework and what's not? Okay, according to Kathy Vatterott, there are 5 hallmarks of good homework. The fundamental 5, hallmark 1 is that the homework should have purpose. So instead of just being homework just to do homework, there needs to be a reason and a deeper learning to it. So one example for finding purpose in something would be for spelling homework. Instead of maybe just having students write 10 spelling words 3 times each, just for memory. Maybe they could use them in a sentence, or they could design their own task for how to go over the spelling words, because some people do better saying things out loud than writing them down. Or one suggestion is use Scrabble tiles to spell them out, or trace with your finger, or create a puzzle using the words, but to do something that is maybe of their choice for how they want to review their 10 spelling words. Another example that they gave for an activity with purpose is, instead of writing definitions for new vocabulary words, that you could go over the vocabulary words in class first, and then a better task than just writing the definitions over and over again would be to use them in a sentence, use them in a story, or maybe come up with their own little mini quiz. That would be part of their homework assignment. Make a mini quiz where you quiz these 15 vocabulary words. So they're having to make the questions and then, I guess, include a key with it as well. Hallmark 2 for effective homework is efficiency. So it should not take an inordinate amount of time to complete the assignment, for what it's worth. So they say this about projects, which in biology we don't give a lot of regular homework, but we do have projects from time to time. So this was some insight for me specifically. But they say the projects that require non-academic skills, such as cutting, gluing, drawing, are often inefficient. So when you assign projects like dioramas or models or poster displays, although they do say something about posters later on having some value, but basically it's just an activity to see how well they cut and paste and make something look pretty, then it's sort of ineffective as a homework task and not very efficient either because you spend a lot of time doing that. So they suggest doing things, not dioramas, or if you create a poster, it should be a poster that is more about the information that it's including, novel information, more so than just how nice it looks. And then they also recommend a lot of rubrics to go with it so that the students know exactly what their project needs to have, not a bunch of bells and whistles, but important information that they've taken time to investigate. Hallmark 3 is ownership. So the students need to find some sort of ownership of their work or take pride in their homework, which is a struggle to say the least. But they also say that if you can design homework in a way that it makes the students want to take ownership, then that is effective for making good homework. Okay, the fourth hallmark of effective homework is competence. So students should feel competent in completing homework. That kind of ties into you give homework that you've already discussed in class, kids know how to do it, because what we all know is that if they get home with the homework and they don't know how to do it, then they're either not going to do it or they're going to copy somebody else's. So it needs to be something that they know how to do. It recommends differentiating for appropriate levels. So don't give your lower level students stuff that's too hard, but at an appropriate level for them. Okay, and then the fifth hallmark is aesthetic appeal. So it says the way that homework looks is important. If you can give homework that's not hard to read, or even just looking at it, if there is a lot of stuff on the paper or it's a really thick packet, the kids kind of get discouraged before they even open it up and start looking at it. So visually uncluttered, the less information on the page, the better. Plenty of room to write your answers. And then they suggest graphics, clip art, things that make it look inviting and interesting. So, yep. So again, those 5 hallmarks: purposeful, efficient, personalized, doable, and inviting, to kind of sum it all up.
When you're producing effective homework, it's important not to introduce new material. Take something that's familiar already, something you've already covered in class, something that requires lots of practice, rehearsal. They found that these are the most effective things to include in your homework. The more complex the task is, the more open-ended and unstructured, the more the students tend to drown. Compound that with any lag in teacher supervision, and it just is worse than actually no homework at all. So you want to keep it simple, practice something that you've covered in class before, and don't introduce new material. One other thing is that the skills that they practice should be essential to learning. Pick out basic skills that will lead to other types of learning. Don't get out on the fringes too much or into the weeds.
The current district grading policy for homework For grades 7 to 12, it says that it's estimated time to be determined by departments and administration. However, according to the National PTA and research done by Cooper, it suggests that 10 minutes per grade level. So in kindergarten, that would be none. First grade, 10 minutes. Second grade, 20 minutes. If you march that on up the line, that means 120 minutes or 2 hours by 12th grade. They've also found that in that research, saying under 2 hours for every grade level, no matter what, including seniors and AP levels, having under 2 hours is beneficial for the students. As far as how much homework to assign, research by Rhodes has found that multiple attempts just leads to guessing, so having a one and done sort of method seems to work best, and that single attempts give you more realistic data, and if you give them multiple attempts, it just leads to inflation and therefore bumping their grades up, and is not very accurate for their mastery levels.
All right, we know how much homework to give, but how often should we give homework? My research is based on a lady named Shana K. Carpenter from Iowa State University. And in her study, with a whole bunch of other people, they talked about the spacing effect and long-term retention of information is going to be enhanced by previously learned information. So they came up with the end of their whole study that one way to accomplish all this might be to incorporate current lectures, class activities, and they really emphasized really short brief reviews from previously learned information. So these reviews, they said you can implement it as homework assignments, which is what we're focused on, which could be advantageous when class time is limited. And with this interleaving, it shows that students' retention in the mathematics area knowledge is significantly enhanced, and simply rearranging the order of practice problems. Also, a more reliable indicator, they stated that long-term learning revealed a significant advantage of interleaving over blocking, which was another kind of study pattern that this article talked about. So blocking, they said, it makes learning easier initially, which may lead students to favor this approach, and to be reluctant to implement the more difficult yet more effective method of interleaving. So although it may seem at first that students need to relearn a great deal of what they already have learned before, students can relearn that information faster than they originally learned it. So that goes back again to having the really short, brief reviews over previously learned information. So basically all this says is that revisiting previously learned knowledge at periodic time intervals, which it depends on what intervals you use, it further enhances their education and they retain it better. All right, so to go back to the interleaving effect and blocking, which you're probably confused about, blocking is basically just a simple of, it's a type of problem, you choose it, and you basically kind of do it in whatever order you want it. Interleaving is using a bunch of different problems and mixing them together rather than it all being just the same problem repetitive over and over again.
One of the questions concerning homework is, how do we monitor and give feedback? And in an article in the Educational Leadership Journal by Brian Goodwin and Kirsten Miller, that question is actually answered. And the answer is, timely, specific feedback is crucial to make homework an effective practice. And let's actually walk through some of that research. If your feedback on homework or any assignment for that matter is vague, maybe just a numbered score, that can actually lessen achievement and it can erode skills. So according to Williams research in 2011, a study of 6th graders found that providing students with feedback in the form of written comments resulted in significantly higher achievement than providing nonspecific feedback of just numeric scores. And as it turns out, the best feedback is in fact clear, specific guidance on how to improve. And then the timing of feedback is also crucial. For most education purposes, immediate feedback seems preferable, especially when students are learning difficult concept or procedural skills, such as long division, according to this research, in which they run the risk of developing misconceptions or faulty approaches. However, feedback that's too immediate may cause students to rely on teachers for answers rather than preserving and persevering in figuring out problems on their own. And that research is Baggart, Drowns, Kulik, and Morgan from 1991. And both the Baggart, Drowns, and Kulik research is incorporated by Marzano. The optimal timing of feedback seems to depend on the nature of the learning task. When students are acquiring new complex knowledge or skills, real-time checks for understanding and tips can prevent them from developing misconceptions or incorrect practices. When they're extending and applying knowledge, for example, writing an essay or solving a complex theorem, delaying feedback somewhat can enable them to self-correct, develop perseverance, and take responsibility for their own learning objectives. And again, that comes from Baggart, Drowns, Kulik, and Kulik.